All right, guys. Well, welcome to the Carter, Menifee, and Lewis County virtual field day. I'm sure you guys all are aware of the different things that Extension has had to do for us to have programs. And so the three of us are not technically related, but we claim each other as brothers and sisters. And so we decided that we wanted to try this virtual field day. And so we came together. We've shot videos of farms in our counties and kind of have some added stuff to it, and we put it together. So before we get started, one little housekeeping thing is some of you guys on your pages have like just your first name or like a little like just one word on there. In the chat box, if you guys could put your full name in there, and that way I can write you down on the sign-in sheet, that'd be absolutely excellent. But Rebecca and Philip, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't. I hope you all enjoy the program tonight. I know this is not your typical Extension field day. Hey, boss, can you leave that door unlocked? And this is the next best thing, I hope.
I also just want to welcome everybody and appreciate you all being on tonight. And we're excited to share some great things out of our counties with everybody tonight.
All right, Philip, then I guess rock and roll.
I'm Rebecca Kanopka, ag agent here in Carter County, and we're out with Billy Joe and Jackie Rayburn and their granddaughter Kaylee today as part of Rose Ridge Farms, and we're going to look at their water ramps. We also have Miranda Tabor as a soil conservationist with NRCS with us today too. So Miranda, we'll let you start and tell us a little bit about the program here and what they've got going on. So Billy Joe and Buck came to NRCS and they had purchased this farm and they wanted to improve it and raise cattle here. So NRCS came out and helped him plan a farm that could help him efficiently raise his beef cattle. So we went ahead and helped him with some fencing. We did cross fencing as well as fence out the woodland, as well as we installed these pond ramps. And the pond ramps' purpose is to have cattle come into the pond, get a drink, and then come out, instead of having access to the whole pond and damaging the sides of the pond. So this is one of the NRCS practices we can do to help with watering facilities if, you know, you didn't want to do a two-hole water system. So Billy Joe, what do you think now that you all got them finished? Has it helped your operation out?
Oh, tremendously. It's probably increased it by 40% as far as, you know, the number of cattle calves. Yeah, it gives us opportunity to rotate 4 different spots. If we want to do a weekly rotation and sugar, then, you know, or if we want to run 2 weeks, we can. But anyways, it's just been a blessing, and we are so pleased.
So Miranda mentioned that the water ramps prevent the erosion of the bank, and so it allows that riparian zone there around your bank. It also helps with water quality as the animals are drinking, so that they're not in the pond muddying the water up and, you know, messing up your water quality. And so they have manure out of the pond as well. Hopefully, you know, they are coming in, grabbing a drink, and then exiting because they don't like to stand on the rock as long.
You can also use Cape cost share funds to install water ramps on your farm. When you are designing your ramps, for every foot in elevation change, you need to extend your ramp at least 3 feet. Ideally, you want at least 6 to 10 foot of ramp length per 1 foot of elevation change. The width of the ramp will depend on the size of the pond, but ideally you want at least 10 foot wide, plus an additional 1 foot per each 10 head of cattle in the herd. When designing ramps, keep in mind that cattle need 3 foot of watering distance in front of them to drink.
Anything else that you all want to add about any of these practices? Billy Joe and Buck have done a really great job, and it is a prime example of what NRCS is here for, and they have been able to utilize our practices and do a great job on their cattle and show that the rotational grazing is a great way to improve your stock. So can you tell us a little bit specifically about your operation here? How many head of cattle are you running on this particular farm?
We will be running approximately 20, within 1 or 2 years, maybe a little bit more than 20.
Okay.
And with not that many acreage as far as the grasses.
Okay. So how many acres do you have here?
There's probably 40 acres grass.
Okay. And so you have that split between some hay fields as well as pastures, and you talked a little bit about your rotational grazing where you can move them around.
Right. We have 4 fields, which gives us the opportunity to do 1 a week, graze for a week, and rotate them. And then if we need to in the fall of the year, then we can actually do the hay fields. And we set our lanes up to where we can incorporate that as a grazing area.
Okay. When NRCS was planning this farm, we wanted to make sure that he could utilize his entire farm as well as use the rotational grazing method. So we wanted to break up his pasture with some cross fencing to keep, where he can graze 1 spot a week and then switch and move to the next spot. So that was also when we planned water sources into each paddock. And that was the best way. He had many ponds here, and we thought pond ramps would benefit him the most. And so where we are now, you can see there's the gate here behind us, and we can move that. And so that will allow water access for this location or the field over here with the same pond and water ramp.
Yeah, just by, moving the gate. Rotation out of this area. Cool.
If any farmers are interested, or landowners, if you have forestry or pasture land, anything like that, look into NRCS, and we would love to help you all plan your farm and implement some practices that we offer. So come to Carter County, any of your local counties where you are, and see what NRCS can offer for you. So this location didn't have a pond to utilize, so you put in one of the 2-hole waters from this, but it's actually fed from one of your ponds, correct?
Yes. We actually we brought it off to almost 2,000 feet.
So when we did his plan on rotational grazing, we wanted to make sure he had a water source in each paddock. So in this paddock, he didn't have an access to a pond. So the pond ramp that you've seen previously in the video was actually the pond we attached to, ran this pipe line all the way down here to set up a 2-hole water. NRCS also offers spring developments if you have springs, and we can do a water tire tank off of the spring development. We can do a concrete box, rectangle tank off of the spring development, as well as we can do 2-hole waters and cross fencing and do a hub out of those if those were something you were also interested in. But for Billy Joe and Buck's purpose, this was the best way to utilize the pond ramp pond to get water to this field.
Many of the watering systems that Miranda just mentioned are also covered in the CAPE fencing and on-farm water investment area.
Great. And so we also want to take a moment and talk a little bit about your hay feeder that you've got over here. So you've got a covered feeder, and that was part of the CAPE cost share program. That's how you all purchased that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So have you seen an improvement in the amount of hay waste?
Oh, it's unbelievable. You probably saved a third on your hay wastage. And you're able to recover all your manure and put it in your weak spots.
And one other shameless plug that I'm going to do while we're talking about hay is our East Kentucky Hay Contest. And Buck and Billy Joe always participate in that, and we can analyze your hay and get rations back for cattle, goats, and horses for anybody that's interested in that in the fall of the year every year. Okay. So one other practice that you all take advantage of is soil testing, right?
Oh, yes, that's a great thing. What it does, it allows you to soil sample and whatever your ground needs, then it tells you, and it's at the cost of the state.
Right.
It doesn't cost the farmer anything.
Right. So right now, Carter County soil samples are free thanks to a grant through the Soil Conservation Office. So we do encourage everybody to take advantage of that. And you're not wasting money putting out extra fertilizer lime that you don't need. You're putting exactly out what you need, which is also better for the environment as well. Just want to thank you all for letting us come out and see your farm and take some pictures that we're going to use for our virtual field day. And thank NRCS, Miranda, and Melody, our camera worker back there, for coming out and joining us today.
We have Buck and Billy Joe here with us today. So if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask them, you can unmute or type those into the chat box and we'll get the expert answers here.
Hey, Buck and Billy Joe, I've got a question. Is your farm hand that was in the video, is she available to come out and do some farm business?
Yeah.
Is your farmhand that was in the video, is she available to come out and help at other locations?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna take her all of my hay sampling next year because she has got that process down pat.
I got one more question for you all. How long have you all been making those improvements, like your feeding and your pond and everything? How long has it taken? Has it taken 1 year, 2 years?
Well, we've actually been improving our farms for probably 20 years. But the biggest changes have come within the last 8 or 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, maybe more like 5.
Yeah.
Could you all hear that okay?
Yeah, I could hear it just fine. I guess we forgot to say, anybody out there that's in virtual land, if you want to type any questions in the chat, feel free to do that. We can get to them, or if you want to unmute, you can unmute and do that as well.
I will add that if you follow the programs that the state sets up, you're a lot better off because they do it right.
And I'd like to add, if it wasn't for the program, we wouldn't have a lot of the stuff that we have. Because we just wouldn't have been able to afford it.
Okay, if nobody has any further questions, and if you think of it, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll move on to the next farm then. Kanopka County Ag Agent for Lewis County, and today I've got with me one of the finest farmers in Lewis County, Mr. Franklin Malk.
Eli.
Hey Frank, tell me about your cattle operation. How long you been in the cattle operation? How many cows are you running now?
I've been in beef cattle since 2007. I've got 57 cows, 2 bulls, and calves.
Well, we're kind of standing in a very unique spot of your farm. We've got a water tank and a fence around it. What's the whole purpose of this particular spot on your operation?
I put in a rotational grazing. I've got 20 acres in 3 different fields here, and this 50-foot circle around this is how I change from one field to another by opening one gate to another gate. Whichever field they're in, that gate's open. They come to the water tank. When I want to move them, I come down here, open another gate. It's been one of the simplest things I've ever done. These cross fences are high tensile wire. they're run off of one solar charger, and it has worked real well. I can leave approximately 7 to 10 days, depends on the grass grows in each pasture. So it's been pretty good for me.
So what year did you put this particular part in?
This part has been in here. This is the 3rd year. I had the tank in 7 or 8, 10 years ago for central water for every place, more in the field. And then when I went to some of the ag meetings, they were talking about the rotational grazing. I come home and I sat down and I figured this out. Central, circle, 3 pastures, and it has worked real good.
Well, that's good. Now, how many pastures total is in your rotational grazing system? I know you said there's 3 that attaches to this.
There's 3 to this, 1 down here across the creek is 4, and then I have a winter pasture that I let grow up, which would be 5.
So what do you do pasture management wise? As far as how do you keep your pastures in the great shape that they're in?
I fertilize in the spring. I clip them off. This year I clipped the 15th of July, I think it was the 15th, and I clipped them all off. And the rotating of the cattle has been better than ever before. Ever before they would eat in that spot, forget this spot. Since I went to rotating, they keep it much better. I mean, they clean up everything, or they eat everything that's our edible. But before, they would just eat in spots. I will move these cattle to the winter pasture probably around November. I probably wouldn't have to feed a bite of hay till December. That's the way it's been. But yeah, as far as feeding hay, yeah, it's cut down my hay consumption that I would have normally fed before.
So how many days of hay would you say you're feeding a winter?
I would start in December, January, February, March, and part of April. So that's 5 months. 5 months I'm feeding hay. Mid-April, 1st of May, I'll turn out on grass. If, the weather's right, I can get it fertilized and this year I turned out the 20th of April because I'd fertilized the 1st of April and the grass was getting with it. So this year, my intentions is to let them graze maybe 5-7 days, move them so that one pasture won't get so big all at once. But right now, this time of the year, about every 7 days, I'll rotate. In the summertime, the way it's been this year, it's been as high as 12 before I rotate. That sounds like a long time, but there's plenty of grass, and that gives everything a 2-week, 3-week interval when I come back around. And
so when you rotate every 7 or 12 days, depending on the time of year, are you grazing the grass into the ground, or are you leaving some grass cover on there before you move them?
Well, pasture 1 here, they were on it before I went to that hay field, and as you can see, it's still pretty good grass. Pasture 2 here hasn't been on for 14 days. Pasture 3, where we just turned them into, there hasn't been nothing on that for 3 weeks, and it's pretty good grass.
You're trying to leave 4 or 6 inches of grass cover on there for the benefit of faster regrowth, and then water quality and soil erosion issues.
Yeah, that's my intention.
Well, we're in the middle of October right now, Frank, and this year we've been blessed with 80 degrees, but now this week's starting to turn a little colder. We're chance of frost. We're getting down into the 30s at night. Do you do anything particular with this water during the winter months?
This water comes out of a pond. The pond is spring fed. I let it run continuously. All right. But when I move to the other pasture, there will be nothing in this. So that continuous water flow stops it from freezing. It's always a moving. I haven't had no trouble with this water. The cattle are not in the pond. It's just, and they hadn't said they didn't like it yet anyhow.
Do you do anything special with the water? Do you clean it any time of the year, or do you just let nature take its course, or do you have any trouble with algae buildup or anything like that?
I've never had no trouble with algae where they're drinking every day. I haven't had any. I mean, they will drink out of this of a morning, they will drink out of it in the day and of a night, and I haven't had any trouble. I mean, you can look, you can see the bottom of the tank right now, and I haven't had any trouble. I don't, maybe it's because it's spring fed. I don't know, but the water is always pretty cool.
And you can drain it if there is problems or something that you have to go back in.
Yeah, I can drain it.
Okay. Well, now, Frank, when you said you were first skeptical about putting this system in, which I applaud you for taking what was already existing on the farm and making it more efficient. Okay, if you were talking to a farmer that is thinking about this, was there any problems that you had to overcome from installation of this as far as getting the cattle to respond to you and what you wanted them to do?
No, I mean, like at the first of the video there where you seen, when they see my side-by-side and I holler my cow holler, they come running. They know I reckon you'd say, they know what's going to happen, and they know because they came through that gate. When I opened this gate, they come right on past me. If I'd have went to the other gate over here, they'd have went that way. They know when I go to move them again, all I got to do is come back down here, holler, open another gate, and they're going past me. So as far as training the cows to do this, I thought it would be a problem. Everybody said you'll never get them trained to do it, but it was the simplest thing I ever done. I mean, every now and then you'll have a little calf that will not respond to it, but once they learn, it is simple.
So you're telling me that if you have lush grass that they're in pastures and you want to move them to another pasture, the grass is still plentiful, you don't have any trouble moving them?
No, I can move them. Just come to this circle where this water tank's at and holler and open the gate, and they're coming past me. I mean, it's simple.
Now, we seen on the video that you moved them by yourself. You don't have any trouble moving 50 head pastures by yourself at all, do you?
No, my grandkids can move them. My grandkids can come down here on their little four-wheelers, and the one can holler like I do, and they come right to them, and they know what's going on. It's simple.
Well, let me ask you this, Frank. You said you took a 50-foot circle. Why did you do a circle over a square lot or a rectangle lot?
That way there was no corner for them to hide in. I just thought a circle would be better. The circle, I put water panels around it. And so I said, well, why not just put your electric? Well, I have electric all the way around the outside of this, and that's where my gates are. When I open this gate, everything else is still electrified. All my cross fences are still electrified. I can open that gate. They're all still electrified if the other two gates is fastened up.
Well, when you were thinking about designing it, how'd you go about doing that? Did you print you off a map or draw it out, or did you just come out here and say, I'm going to do 50 foot around and we're going to go off of that?
50 foot around is what I had in my mind, all right? And all my pastures, I went to the FSA office and I had them to pull a map up, and we kind of plotted it. There's 60 acres in this total field. So I said, I need 20 acres in each field. So on their map and the way they can do it, they marked it off in 3 fields of 20s. And that's where I got where the fence was at. And we also fixed it to where there's shade in all 3 fields.
So your cattle have no access at any point in time to the pond?
No, I don't want them into the pond. It's like I said, it's a spring-fed pond. I don't want them in it a messing. I want all their water to come here. Now, this is the main water right here. I mean, it doesn't look like much, but this will keep them going all year long.
And you don't have to work. The water will stay cool all summer long, be 90 degrees, and the cows don't have any trouble drinking the water at all.
Nope. And there's another thing. If the water comes through that ground it's going to be 56 degrees when it hits this. If they keep a drinking it, it doesn't have enough time to heat up and get hot. I mean, it right now, I'd say this water is probably in the 50s.
It is pretty chilly.
Yeah, but it's all underground from that pond up yonder. And like I said, the pond is spring cold. It's not a warm pond. It's a cool pond where it's spring fed.
But if you had any advice to a farmer that was thinking about rotational grazing, what would you tell them?
They need to look at their situation, plan your fields according to your water sources. Try to keep them within the same amount of acreage, and the rotating part of it is a pretty good thing. I mean, I've utilized my grass better. They clean it up better. They're not leaving grass. I think it's a good thing, but the main thing is to plan your fields to where you're happy. As far as the cattle moving them within 2 months, they're just like little puppies running through here. They do all right.
And Frank, I love the fact that you mentioned FSA and NRCS and Extension. You utilized every opportunity, every office that exists in the counties for the farmers.
Yeah, I try to stay. I don't want in trouble with anybody. You know what I'm saying? The NRCS office, that's these ditches. I don't want in trouble with them. Philip, I don't care if I get in trouble with you or not, but you know, you've got to work within the reason, because you don't want to do something that down the road they say, hey, this was not right, you got to change this. You've got to work with your offices, or I think you do, and I do. With everything I do, I work with them. The grandkids, they come down here, they fool with the cattle. If I had them in a small alleyway, I feel like the grandkids might, be jeopardized. But here, they got room, they can go wherever they want to. So, it's all about being safe and simple.
But you mentioned the grandkids. That's great that you're getting the next generation involved in farming and getting them the appreciation of the lifestyle.
Well, the oldest one, I tell them I'm going to sell the farm all the time when I'm getting too old. And the oldest one says, no, you're not, Papa. Said, I'm going to take it over. Said, you've got everything set up here where I can do it.
I think that's one of the greatest compliments you could get.
Yeah. They come down here and they check on my cattle and they tell me, say, Papa, it's time to move them. They know, they've been with me enough now when I'm doing this stuff that they know what's going on.
Well, that's good.
And like you said, I'm trying to learn the next generation something to do. Even though they are girls, but girls raise cattle too.
They do. They're hard workers. I've seen that firsthand. Well, Frank, thanks again for your time. If you've got any questions about rotational grazing or water systems, feel free to reach out to your local county extension office, or you can call me at the Lewis County office. I'll be glad to talk to you. Frank, thanks again, and we'll catch up with the next farm.
All right. Thank you, Philip.
Well, that was a tour of Mr. Franklin Malk's farm. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Frank? Frank, do you got anything you want to add?
No. I think I talked enough. You should have had a better script, though.
Hey, we were just going with the flow, weren't we?
Seemed like it.
All right. Well, since we have, give me just a minute here. I got to get some stuff set up.
Okay. You got it set up nice, Frank. We're kind of the same way. Only our cattle tell us when to move them, believe it or not. When we go to pastures every day, when they're ready to move, they will let us know, believe it or not. So.
He's saying, Frank, that they do a similar operation on their farm, but instead of you telling the cows to move, the cows tell them to move.
Yeah, mine will too.
Yeah.
they want to go to greener grass
Yeah,
and they won't eat it down as good.
yeah.
That's what I've seen. So I make them stay a day long.
Yeah.
Well,
We run smaller groups than you do. We've got on 4 different farms, and most of them are around 20, 25 head. One farm, we've got like 40 head, but 20 head works good for us on farm.
he's saying that he's got some smaller groups than what you're running. He's running about 20 head or so. And am I correct in saying this, Mr. Rayburn, that you think 20 head is a sufficient group on your farm?
Yeah, we try to set it up that way. We run about 100 head mama cows, but they're on different farms. But smaller groups seem to work better for us.
If there's no more questions, we will jump to the last farm of the night. And we're going to go to Menifee Camp.
And I am the Menifee County Ag 4-H agent, and I am here today with Rick Bayer, and he is one of my farmers, and has farmed for a few years, right, Rick?
Since I was about 3 or 4.
About 3 or 4. And so he runs a cattle operation out on Dan Ridge, and has hosted field day a few times for us at the extension office. And so we're going to talk a little about his new practice with doing haylage. And so how long have you guys been doing haylage?
It's 3 years now.
3 years. So what, when you decided to go this route and buy a hay wrapper for the program, what kind of made you, what gave you the idea of doing it?
Mainly, a lot of times, you just don't have the weather. The weather, you can get this up a day quicker. Sometimes you can cut it early in the morning, and I had rolled it the same day, late that evening. So that's one thing. Another thing, we was thinking about building another barn, and the barn would probably run 25 to 30,000, for a good sized hay barn with metal all the way around it. And so we decided to go with the wrapper. You kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's the way I looked at it.
We like doing that in Menifee County, don't we?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got to save everything we can.
Exactly.
And the reason we went with the inline wrapper is because it's half the plastic. You just wrap the outside, you see. If you go with the other one, you've got to wrap both the ends too.
Awesome. So when you're wrapping it, what are some things you have to do at the end of the row?
We've been going to the barn when we start a new line and get a row of dry hay and put it in first. Then when we finish the line, a lot of times we'll run back to the barn and get a dry row and put it in the last time. That plugs the end up, see.
Awesome. Any issues with holes in the plastic?
Every once in a while there'll be like with a different size roll, you have a little pocket there. Your rows need to fit tight together. And every once in a while we'll have to tape over a little spot, but that's it.
Round bale silage is a product of cutting a livestock forage with similar equipment that we would use in hay production, allowing it to wilt to between 40 and 70% moisture, baling it in a tight uniform bale, and wrapping it in plastic to exclude oxygen. When the bale is wrapped in plastic and oxygen is eliminated from the bale, the fermentation process starts. The anaerobic microorganisms, those that do not require oxygen, start to produce lactic acid. That lactic acid reduces the pH of the bale to somewhere between 3.5 and 5, which stabilizes the bale and prevents any other growth of microorganisms. That way the bale is stable and can be stored for long periods of time. All species, grasses, and legumes that we commonly use in Kentucky for livestock forage production can be ensiled. Grasses tend to ensile the best because they have more soluble carbohydrates, but the legume crops like red clover, alfalfa, Sericea lespedeza, etc., have also been ensiled and stable for long periods of time and produce a high-quality crop. In hay production, we have a small window of moisture content. Somewhere between, something below 20% is usually what we shoot for. But in round bale silage, anything between 40 and 70% is adequate.
How did you fund the practice? So I believe you might have got a CAPE grant to
Yeah, we got cape through it. We got some a little money back on it. I don't remember exactly how much. But
Yep.
we got some back on it. Yeah,
So it qualified probably in the forage area.
yeah, it was.
Awesome.
With the individual wrap bales, that bale is well protected until the time the film is cut. And if the feed out is for example, only twice a week, then that bale will be consumed within 3 or 4 days. And under almost all conditions, that should work well. In hot weather, even 3 days may be pushing what we would like to see for aerobic stability.
All right. So what are some practices that you have learned while you've been doing haylage?
Well, you need to try to get it from 40 to 70% moisture for the best. But we have rolled it a little greener than that just because there's rain coming in. It makes awful heavy roll. But the cattle may seem like they like it. It gives you advantage on kind of go ahead and cut when they get rain and maybe get it up the next day or something like that.
Awesome. Does it take a lot of help to do it?
No more help than you would putting it up dry. This inline wrapper he'll wrap it just about as fast as you can set it on there. So you bring a wagon load up here. As long as the plastic don't break, you get a bad roll of plastic sometimes. As long as the plastic don't break, you can about roll it just as fast as I can set it on the wrapper. Yeah.
Very cool. So do you have any help that normally helps you while you do it?
I've got Martha, my wife, and my son and his wife.
Awesome. Have you had any problem with any rodents or anything that get into
I've not had nary bit here. Not nary bit where I'm at, but other people have. But coyotes they claim is bad for it. But I've not had no trouble out of it.
We have a producer in the other part of the county that has problem with bears getting into it. So I'm so glad that you haven't had that problem.
We've not had that, no, not one bit. No.
Do you usually test your haylage?
Yes, I do. And one time I come in first in the region.
Yep.
And the second year I'd come in second. So we're doing something right. I don't know exactly. Yeah.
What do you do with the plastic after you've done feeding it?
I get about 4 to 6 rolls, and I either burn it, and I can put it in the garbage. They will pick it up in the garbage here. So, but I don't want to let none get ahead because you run on top of it and it gets muddy. Every 3, 4 or 5 rolls, I do away with it. So.
How much protein do you get? What's the comparison of feeding a haylage to a dry bale?
It usually haylage runs about 14–15% on the good haylage, and hay are sometimes 8 to 10. So you're gaining more nutrients and stuff for your cows. And we try to save the very best for when the cows is calving. That way we don't buy no supplement and stuff like that. We haven't bought any supplement for the cows in the last three years. So
good. How many cows do you guys run?
We got 104 cows right now.
Awesome. And if I remember right, they're a different breed, aren't they?
Well, the cows have got a lot of Sleer in them, but we crossed some Gelby in them.
Okay.
So they're Gelby Sleer cross. Most of them are. Yeah.
Awesome. How many bales of haylage do you feed a year?
We feed about 900, and we got 1,100 up this year.
Good.
And so far in October we haven't fed anything. So last year I think we did feed some in October, and the year before maybe some around last in September. Drought, a little bit dry, but we usually feed around 8 to 900 rolls. So.
Awesome.
And we got 1,100 up.
How many acres of hay do you guys cut?
Probably around 200 acres. We cut on other farms and stuff.
Cool. Awesome. So overall, it's been a great decision.
Yes, it has. It's worked out real good. Yeah.
Good. Do you notice any difference in your cattle after starting feeding?
You can tell the difference though, and then you can tell that they really like it. We roll out a lot of the roller, unroller, and they really like it. They'll line up and head right down behind the tractor.
I would like for it to be made into a candle. I think Kate should start selling it as a smell at the farmer's market.
I like it. I like it smell myself. Yes, I do.
Me too. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rick.
Oh, thank you for coming out.
Oh, anytime. And
in summary, we'd like to make sure that you take care of these points in making round bale silage. First of all, make safety your first priority. Become familiar with the mechanical operation of the equipment. Remember that slow baling speed helps form tight, dense bales. High moisture round bales weigh between 1,500 and 2,000 pounds. Harvest the crop at the optimum stage of maturity for good yields and high quality. Avoid baling crops for silage containing more than 70% moisture or less than 40% moisture. Remember that bales should be wrapped within 12 hours of baling if possible. Wrap at the storage site to avoid damage to individual wrapped bales. Use high-quality polyethylene plastic film. A minimum of 4 layers of plastic should be used on each bale. To reduce waste and spoilage, feed only what can be consumed in a 2-day period. Check with your local government for policies on disposal of recycled or of used plastic. And if you have questions or problems, please contact your local extension office.
All right, Miss Mary, do you have anything you need to add or would like to add?
No, I don't have anything to add, but if you guys have any questions, we have Rick and Martha. They are on here as well. So if you have any questions for them, just give us a shout. While we're waiting for those questions, but all of these videos that we've watched has kind of talked about the East Kentucky Hay Contest. And so that happens every fall, and all 3 of us pull hay samples, and Miss Rebecca in Carter County won the most hay samples this year. And so those are free to happen, and you guys get those results back. And so it's a great way to know what you're feeding.
And don't forget to add, Mary, that we can also take those those hay samples and we can balance some rations with you.
Yep.
Oh,
Mary, Jeff and Angela.
Hey guys.
Hey, who's got that bear problem?
It's you all.
We're like, damn, she threw us under the bus.
I didn't say any names. Nobody would have known if you had said something.
Yeah, but that's the fun of it.
hey, I do have a couple of questions in the chat, and these go to Frank Moss. Frank, do you spring calf or fall calf?
Spring in the early summer.
Okay, Frank springs in the early summer. And then has Frank ever left a newborn calf in the field after moving the herd?
Yes.
How do you handle it?
With the high tensile fence, when mama balls, they'll run right underneath of it. There's 2 strands there, and they can run right underneath.
Back to... All right, I think that's got us wrapped up, unless you all have any other questions. But in true extension fashion, we always serve a meal at the Lewis County Field Day. Since this is a virtual field day, we're going to give you a virtual meal.
Did you get full?
But high price meat too. Hamburger $5 a pound now. Don't start yard sale at the same price at 4 years ago.
Well, you've made my taste buds water.
Well, guys, thank you all for attending. I know this wasn't a traditional field day, but we're not in traditional times, so hopefully this come in a close second.
And I'll add one thing, Philip. So you guys, for this to qualify for your CAPE education, there is an education form that you guys have to fill out, and you turn it in with your receipts. And so we'll have a code for that. And so that code is going to be, checks it on here. Where is it at? Was it Hey Bale?
Hey Baylor.
Hey Baylor. And so if you'll put that on your form, and then I know in Menifee County you still have to have my signature, so just bring it into the office and I will sign it for you. So I don't know how, if Carter and Lewis County still make you have signatures or not, but
Lewis does. Our programs aren't opened up yet. We were going to meet hopefully the first of the year, so they'll be coming open in maybe March or so. But this will count for my Lewis County guys on here tonight. Will count.
Carter requires a signature too, but if you'll get in touch with me, I can either email you or mail you one. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you to all of our farmers that let us come out and video them. We greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to mention that and I completely forgot. Also, this has been recorded tonight. Once we get it up, we'll get it up on YouTube, and Mary's got the email list. I'll send her the link, and then she can email it out to everybody. So if you have some things you wanted to review or anything like that, you can do it anytime.
It'll
If not,
also go up on the Carter County Ag, our YouTube channel as well. So there's some other videos on there, and I'll give a shout out too, and a shameless plug for our YouTube channel. I'll put that link in just a second. But Buck and Billy Joe also did some preg checking, and we made a video with the blood testing of that. So be sure to check out our YouTube page for that as well. And I'll get that link in the chat in just a second.
well, while Rebecca's pulling that up, Mary, unless you have anything else, I think we'll hang around here for a few more minutes, make sure there's some questions. Rebecca's put that in the chat. But if not, thank you all, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Everybody be safe and healthy.